Welcome back to the Ask Lee section, or segment, or slot, or whatever we're going to call it. Alright, so as usual, if you've got any questions that you want me to answer in this segment, then please leave them in the comments to one of the Ask Lee videos. If you're listening on the podcast, then you can leave a comment in there, just mention that it's for Ask Lee and not for something different. Alright, a follow-on question from SolemnSun. Can you also touch on the different levels in the energy body and what types of influences affect the different layers of our auras and energetic field? Thank you as always. Ask Lee is one of my favorite segments you do. Oh, excellent. Thank you. All right. Glad you enjoy it. Okay. The energy bodies. This can get convoluted as always. There are a lot of different schools of thought on this. And, we can look at the energy bodies from the perspective of the aura, or we can look at the energy bodies from the perspective of the different parts of the soul. There's also the nadis, or the meridians, that run through our body from point to point, carrying energy through it and everything else. So there's a lot of different ways and areas that we can look at, consider the energy bodies. And in terms of things like the aura, the layers of the energy body, there's a lot of different schools of thoughts there. Schools of thought there. There we go. Got it eventually. There are some that talk about 3 energy bodies. There are some that speak of 4, some that speak of 5, some that speak of 10. So, it really depends on what system you're following. But if we had to, I like to kind of put it in a 3 and a 5 aspect. In terms of the 5, we would probably be talking about the physical body, the etheric body, the emotional, mental, and spiritual bodies. And the spiritual body is sometimes called the causal body. Now, I think it's important to realize that the physical body is an energy body. We kind of pass and take in energy on a constant basis, but it's on an atomic level. But even there, the atoms vibrate. It's just that each energy body that we talk about becomes less dense. So the physical body is the most dense of the energy bodies. But it doesn't mean that just because it's physical, it's not an energy body. It definitely is. Everything is energy after all. Okay, so we have the physical body, which contains the organs, which contains the brain and everything else. Then about roughly an inch from that physical body is the etheric body. And this is kind of like the blueprint of the physical body. And you'll find that if you are going to get an illness, then it'll show up in the etheric body first. It'll show up in the various different bodies, but you'll probably notice it in the etheric body first, and then it becomes part of the physical body. That's because it is the blueprint of the physical body, and therefore any changes that happen to the physical body first happen to the etheric body. Then we get the emotional and the mental bodies. These obviously affect the emotions and the thought processes that we have. And then the spiritual body, which is very much our connection to the higher self, or the unconscious collective, or the universe, the Godhead, the divinity, whatever thing that's out there that you consider to be that divine aspect of ourselves. And when I say that, I mean not just ourselves as individuals, but ourselves as being a collective, as being connected to all things. we can look at this in terms of the chakras. We have the 7 standard chakras that we speak about in Western esotericism. And then we also get the 8th chakra and the 9th chakra. There are a lot of other chakras. There's chakras in your palms, chakras on your feet. There are chakras below the actual root chakra. There's chakras all over the body, really. It's just that these 7 that we normally speak of are the main chakras. And the chakras really, they're whirls of energy. Spirals that come out from the chakras are actually located on the spine or along the energy line which follows the spine, and it's kind of like an energy that comes out in a funnel from that point on or along the spine, and this then goes through the various energy bodies. So anything that affects the causal body, for instance, will eventually make its way through this funnel into the etheric body, which then is the blueprint and then affects the physical body. But if we speak about the 8th and the 9th chakra, there's again lots of schools of thought here. Some will even go into 10, 11 and 12 chakras, which usually more relate to these actual energy bodies that I'm speaking about, up to the causal body or the spiritual body. But if we speak about the 8th and 9th chakra, from my understanding, from the way I have learnt it, is that the 8th chakra is very much our connection to the divine. It's kind of like if you consider the higher self. So if we get to the crown is a connection from our lower and middle. You bring your lower and middle self together, and then you raise it up to the crown, and then the crown is a connection that we have between ourselves, between those parts and the higher self. So the 8th chakra we can consider very much to be the higher self, and then that higher self is then the connection to the divine. Which then goes on to the 9th chakra, and the 9th chakra is in the center. So when we say in the center, it's in the center of all things, it's in the center of everything. And we usually, we like to confine things. So if we imagine a circle and then there's a dot in the middle of the circle, it's a fixed point. But in this case, it's not. The circumference of that circle is all things, and that center it's not a fixed point. It is the center of all things. It's where everything is still. So those would be the extension of the chakras. And then we can look at the currents, the flow of energy through our bodies. The meridians and the nadis, then we would be going into Eastern systems, the Indian system, the Hindu system, and then obviously the Chinese medicine. So these are lines of energy that transport energy, lines that transport energy from point to point. So if we have a look at specifically Chinese medicine, for instance, we will find the acupressure points, the acupuncture points, and these are points of energy, and they're very much now I've forgotten the word. There's a word for it in Sanskrit, and it begins with an M. I'll have to try and remember, and I'll come back to you on that. But they're kind of like energy points on the body, so we can kind of consider them to be chakras. But I think that this distinction here comes in that chakras are these big main whirls of energy, whereas these energy points are, if they're stimulated, they can they alter the energy that actually flows through them. But anyway, these nadis are lines going from point to point, so they go throughout the entire body. There's something like 72,000 nadis that we can work with and stimulate. So these carry energy from point to point, and as I said, if you stimulate one of these points in a certain way, you can incite, you can activate, you can alter the flow of the energy. And if you do it without proper knowledge, you can obviously do harm. But if you do have the proper knowledge, you can do a lot of good, create a lot of healing. So that's really it. I think the other thing that we could probably mention is that if your energy is not flowing properly, you're going to feel it. You're going to feel it emotionally, you're probably going to feel it mentally, and you're definitely going to feel it physically. So if your energy is out of whack, it's not flowing properly, there's lots of good things you can do. You can do qigong, you can do yoga, you can do tensegrity, which is what should we call it? The moving meditation. I can't really call it a meditation though. Tensegrity is from Carlos Castaneda, the Toltec warrior path, and really what you're doing there is you are doing particular movements which kind of wake up the energy and then get it moving properly. What he often spoke of was that the body is an energy body, and it looks like an egg. And if you don't do any particular work which works with the energy, which gets it flowing in the way it should be flowing, then it kind of has this, it looks like a really slumped egg with a big rounded base and then sort of tapering up to the top. But when it's flowing properly, it goes into more of an oval shape. It's all that energy that's kind of like sitting at the bottom there, and it becomes stagnant. So you'll find in a lot of the passes in tensegrity, you're doing a lot of stomping. You kind of hitting yourself type of thing to kind of break up the energy. It's considered to go stagnant, but also become like hard. So you're doing a lot of stomping, you're doing a lot of hitting, you're doing a lot of movements which actually are quite violent sometimes. You're punching, and it's all in this need to break up the energy, to shatter it, to get it out of that stagnant state. And then what you do, once it's broken up and it's starting to move a little bit, then you start moving it. And then you carry on doing this. And eventually the energy is flowing properly, and it comes more, the energy body goes more into an oval shape. But there's tensegrity. There's also Falun Dafa or Falun Gong, which is an excellent practice. It really is. But there's a lot of different practices you can do to get the energy flowing properly. And you'll notice the difference. I do. I definitely do. You'll notice the difference if you're doing one of these practices, like qigong, for a period of time, a month or two, and then all of a sudden you stop, and in a week you're going to feel it. You notice a huge difference. And this doesn't just affect you physically. You do feel more energized, and what's great about it is that when being energized, you go through the whole day and you're just going, and then when it comes for your time to go to sleep's not a problem. It doesn't mean that you're pumped up and everything else, and therefore you can't sleep. The energy becomes so balanced that that whole process of sleep and awake becomes more manageable, which is a great thing. But you also notice it emotionally. You feel more stable. You notice it mentally. Your mental processes, your thought patterns, your thought processes are a lot easier. You come up with ideas. You're more inspired and more motivated. So all of these things, it's just a case of getting the energy flowing, and it affects all of the energy bodies. And obviously with these practices, then you get closer to that spiritual body. So yeah, I think that covers it. And so I'll see you again next week with more Monday musings and Ask Lee Wednesdays. There we go. All right, have a good one. Cheers for now. Bye bye.